Hello world, from Laracon US 2026 in Boston. It's Wednesday, July 29th, 2026, and here's what happened this week in PHP internals. 15 stories this week, so let's get into it. But first, this week's episode is brought to you by Tideways. When a request is slow and your logs won't say why, Tideways shows you where the time went. Profiling, tracing, and monitoring built specifically for PHP. Slow request to root cause in minutes. Setup takes 5 minutes and no credit card is required. Start your free trial at tideways.com. And we have a second sponsor this week, Geocodio. Address correction, geocoding, and data enrichment and distance calculations in North America and the UK. Built on Laravel since 2014. Try it free at Geocodio. This week's top story, the mass deprecations vote for PHP 8.6 is open. Gina P. Banyard opened it Monday, and it's 35 separate ballots, each needing its own 2/3 majority, and each submitted individually because, as Gina reminded everyone, the wiki can only handle one vote at a time. Voting runs through August 10th, and most of the 35 are passing easily. MySQLi get charset stands at 34-0, and SPL classes at 33-0, but the headliners are moving the other way. List, the construct Julia Reinders-Fulmer, his packages scan found over 12,000 times, stands at 17 yes to 19 no, falling well below the required 2/3 threshold. The getText underscore alias is failing at 6 to 18. Reserving in, out, and in, out is failing at 5 to 16 with 13 abstentions. And let sits at 17 to 10, a majority, but still shy of 2/3. The loudest argument is about one of the smallest items, the dechunk stream filter, which as of recording sits at 15 yes to 13 no, a coin flip vote on a 2/3 question. On Monday, Matteo Beccati was the only one to vote no, and he explained why, warning, "I believe we should provide such an alternative together with the deprecation. Rather than expecting projects with 200 million plus installations," he named Symfony HTTP client to write their own decoder in PHP. Jakub Zelenka agreed that the item wasn't ready, saying it should wait until it's properly investigated. Pierre Joy ran his own usage research and pushed back, noting being present in a code base does not automatically mean it's used. Symfony's native client disables the filter by default, and most stacks sit on curl anyway. Matteo then corrected the research. Symfony has shipped a pure PHP alternative since release 8.2, which is exactly why Pierre's research pointed the wrong way. Jakub's objection sharpened from there, and he wrote, "This is exactly a half-baked deprecation because we need to keep it for internal use anyway. So this does not give us any code removal, and we still need to maintain it. I don't understand why we need to rush it, as there's no real reason for that." By Tuesday evening, he'd also revealed a twist. He said he's already fixed the select limitation on filtered streams in master, so that improvement lands in 8.6, no matter how this ballot goes. Tamil Takiela, meanwhile, asked a different question. Why deprecate defines dead case insensitive flag at all, when just removing the parameter breaks nobody? So far, nobody has answered him. Caleb White's pipe assignment operator, pipe equals, the compound form of the pipe, and his first RFC went to ballot Tuesday morning. Walked through the deadlines with some detailed coaching from Tim Dusterhuis, whom Caleb thanked for going to bat for his RFC. The machinery worked. The voters are split right down the middle. As of recording, the count is 8 yes, 8 no, 3 abstaining, and it also needs a 2/3 vote. Voting runs to August 11th. The queue from last week showed up on time. Nick Sadot opened voting on read-only property defaults. On Friday, it stands 17-0 with 5 abstentions. Nobody's against it yet. That one closes August 7th. And Khaled Alam opened voting Saturday on const object property rights, allowing rights to properties of objects referenced by constants. After a couple of quickly fixed procedural stumbles, the count stands at 11-2 with 5 abstentions, above the 2/3 line. That one closes August 8th. Two of the carryover votes come off the board this week, and neither thread needed a single new email. Minimum supported versions vote for 8.6 closes Thursday, requiring autoconf 2.7 stands at 27-2, and notably, the abstentions shrank from 3 to 2. Requiring com reset connection stands at 26-0, and the time duration class closes Friday. The primary has stretched to 33-1, and full method names, multiply by, divided by, lead the naming question 28-2. Barring a very strange 48 hours, PHP 8.6 will be getting a duration class. Seyfettin Gamadi's literal scalar types made it to the ballot Thursday morning for 18 minutes. At 5:26 UTC, he opened the vote, 3 questions deep, integer and string literals, float literals, and strict versus coercive matching. At 5:44, he pulled it back down, writing, "I'm retracting this vote. I opened it prematurely in violation of the voting prerequisites in the feature proposals policy." The intent to vote 2 days ahead, and that morning's 1.0 vote or update was a minor change, which starts a 7-day cooldown. He plans to reopen tomorrow, July 30th, a date that brushes right up against the freeze, so it may yet retarget 8.7. The self-retraction turned into a referendum on the process itself. Juris Evertovsky, a longtime reader and one-time RFC author who says he never felt internal enough, decided to comment on the process. All the mandatory cooldowns, cooldown resets on minor changes, announcements to vote, cooldown resets on inactive discussions, appears to me like bureaucratic hoops that people have to jump through. The process was hard and daunting enough before this. Bob Vinehand agreed, noting he voted against the process RFC back then and framed the trade plainly. You sort of have to decide what you optimize for. Easier for authors or easier for commenters. But I think in this case, it went way overboard in terms of strictness. The GD 2.4 timing dispute from last week wound down to closing statements, and they were constructive ones. Pierre Joy's position, the late arrival was unavoidable. The libgd sync had to survive PHP's full CI matrix first, and he argued, process has to be humane. If they are purely for the sake of having a process, we fail as a project and solve users' needs. Rowan Tommins made the case that this isn't red tape, but triage. There are maybe 20 sections describing details of the proposal, and the crude reading time estimate from Firefox is 46 to 60 minutes. It may be clear in your head that most of this is uncontroversial, but for anyone to even make that judgment requires investing a reasonable amount of time. But he says to spend that time on 8.6 work now and this RFC later, though he left open whether the cutoff itself sits in the right place. One concrete footnote, Pierre added the procedural GD image functions to the deprecation path on his telling, a warning from the GD extension itself in 8.7 and gone in PHP 9. Derek Reathens hit a fresh regression on master. His Xdebug test suite started failing, and the trail led to the commit implementing the display error function args RFC. Stream warnings from include require, BZ open, finfo open, and its friends no longer say which file couldn't be opened. The path was an argument, and arguments got scrubbed. Derek's verdict was blunt, arguing, this doesn't seem to me like an enhancement for users. Either put the file name into the message text itself or revert the change RFC or not. Camille Takiela defended the change in behavior countering. The file path could leak sensitive information. His suggestion runs the other direction, fold the path into all stream error messages deliberately rather than leaking it by accident. And while he's at it, he'd rather streams stop raising their own duplicate warnings entirely. With Open Baster, in effect, one failed include currently earns you 3 warnings. Edmund of the True Async project turned last week's zero reply pre-RFC into a real one. Concurrency support in the PHP engine. The pitch is deliberately minimal. Give the engine a coroutine representation and make the scheduler pluggable by extensions. He was explicit about the shape of it, writing, it adds no classes, no functions, no constants, and no syntax. The engine compiles in no PHP symbols at all. With no scheduler registered, PHP behaves exactly as it does today. This is not true async. It's the seam true async would plug into alongside anyone else. A scheduler can adopt fibers started by React PHP, Revolt, AMP, and there's per coroutine storage that would someday make OB start coroutine safe. And there is no parallelism. Everything stays on one OS thread. The implementation exists as a pull request, and this time he did get a reply. Seyfedin Gamadi expects the real discussion to wait until after 8.6 ships, but his early read was warm. Overall, I really like this idea and approach. I think this is the right path forward. Edmund's answer? No rush. Osama Al-Damiri, who got his RFC karma in 2 minutes last week, shipped the RFC. Preg throw on error, pass a flag to any Preg function call, and a PCRE failure throws a catchable Preg exception, instead of a warning plus a false or a null that you have to notice and then chase all the way through Preg last error. It's the same pattern that JSON throw on error already set, and it's strictly opt-in. He stressed the conservatism, writing, a call does exactly the same thing with or without it, byte for byte. The flag only changes how the error is delivered. It targets the release after 8.6, and he is aware of Larry Garfield's request to hold non-8.6 business until September. His compromise is to let the thread tick over quietly rather than restart it. So far it has 0 replies. Quick hits. The 8.6 release managers posted the 2-week warning. Beta 1 lands Thursday, August 13th. And the soft freeze hits when the tag is created, August 11th. And every RFC vote targeting 8.6 must be closed before Beta 1. After that, merges need release manager approval until the hard freeze at RC1 on September 22nd. The curl opt HTTP header new line thread came back with a verdict from upstream. Short Lenkemper relayed word from curl's own Daniel Stenberg that the docs already say headers must not be CLRF terminated. And libcurl may start rejecting the stragglers outright. There's a curl pull request in flight. Matteo Biccatti's conclusion was to stand down, saying libcurl will eventually take care of it. And Stephen Wilson's SNMP extension work is back at the finish line. Both reworked PRs updated per Gina B. Banyard's review and waiting a final squash and merge check with a third PR queued behind them. The paired decay story found a new symptom. Julia Reinders-Fulmer reports that individual bug pages on the pair site now error out, claiming the original reporter has not yet confirmed their email address, which locks away exactly the archaeology she'd argued is worth preserving. And the typed arrays thread got its epilogue. Larry Garfield explained why PHP probably won't get new base types for collections. The engine makes that really, really hard, which is the same reason enums became objects. He shared his and Derek Reelan's old collections research notes and set the course. Wait for reified generics, then convene a working group. Holly Schilling's counteroffer was to skip the wait, pointing everyone to her self-published PHP 9 roadmap, generics, structs, module extensions, and surfaces, which she would like the list to treat as a rough outline for the future. So that's the week. 42 ballots open at once, the 35 deprecations with list headed for defeat and dechunk splitting the room, pipe assignment dead out of the gate, read-only defaults and const writes both comfortably clear, duration and minimum versions closing within days, both far ahead, a literal types vote that lasted 18 minutes and reopens tomorrow, and the soft freeze 2 weeks out. Links to every thread are below. If you found this interesting, a like or a comment helps more people find it, and share it with whoever at your team is waiting on these votes. Subscribe with the bell if you want these the moment they're posted each week, and if you missed last week's episode, that's a good one to watch next. Thanks again to Tideways.com and Geocodio for supporting this week's episode. We're Artisan Build. See you next week.